How do you know like this is something that you're gonna undertake and track?
I look at it the same way I look at bringing on a piece of equipment or going into adding a new management, myopia management or something to the practice. Right? What's it going to add to me? How much time is it going to take for me or my team to pull this? And by the way, I have my team pull the numbers because I want them to have that sense of discovery. And I don't pull the numbers. I just review them. They pull them and send them to me. But if I'm just pulling a metric to make me feel good, kind of like your check off to-do list, I'll write it, once I finish something, I'll write it on the list just to check it off. That's not helpful. So I want to make sure that there's a good ROI in tracking the metric.
Well, hello and welcome to the Chris Wolfe Podcast on iCode Media. Today, I have my good friend, Dr. Aaron Werner on, and we're going to talk about business metrics. One of the things, Aaron, that I was hoping to do, and also before we get into that, please support our sponsors. Please support them. They support us. They allow us to do the things that we do here.
The most common questions I get include, what ophthalmological codes or evaluation and management codes should I use? What ICD-10 codes do I need to bill with this CPT code? What CPT codes can be billed together and what can't? And my favorite, how do I manage a patient who has diabetes who comes in for a quote-unquote routine eye exam? These questions really highlight the confusion and uncertainty that serves as a daunting hurdle for providers, makes it more challenging for them to care for their patients and provide those patients with the best opportunity for a lifetime of ocular health and clear vision. That's why we built iCode Education for this specific purpose. Our mission is to provide optometrists with resources to help you understand disease states, revenue cycles, and billing and coding so that you can put that on autopilot and truly care for your patients. Check out iCodeEducation.com. That's EYECODE education.com. We've developed a premier billing and coding bundle that includes all of our billing and coding resources in one place. We also have a 10% discount code just for listeners of this podcast. Enter the coupon code EYECODEMEDIA22 at checkout. We'd love to work with you. Check out iCodeEducation.com. Hello, dedicated optometrists. Are you looking for a way to support your patient's vision and overall eye health? Let me introduce you to Vision Edge Pro, a visual performance supplement that stands out in our profession. Vision Edge Pro contains a balanced blend of mesozeaxanthine, lutein, and zeaxanthine in a 10-10-2 ratio. This combination has been scientifically shown to increase macular pigment density, which enhances visual performance, including contrast sensitivity and vision in glare situations. Additionally, Vision Edge Pro provides 300 milligrams of DHA and EPA, fulfilling the daily requirements for omega-3s as recognized by the leading health organizations. This ensures your patients receive the essential nutrients their eyes need for optimal health. Whether it's for everyday screen use, night driving, or enjoying the outdoors, Vision Edge Pro supports your patients in seeing their best. Recommend Vision Edge Pro for your patients today and help them achieve clearer, healthier vision. Contact your local MacuHealth representative for more details. Vision Edge Pro, because your patients deserve the best in eye health. Go to MacuHealth.com and use the coupon code PODCAST2024 at checkout for special discounts.
But we're playing with some new systems, so we've got some new connections and some new technology that allows us to distribute our podcast live. So you may be hearing this in post-production through the podcast feed, but you also may be watching this live. And Aaron, you had just released an episode that really resonated with me this last Wednesday. I think it was a good job. You kind of opened up your heart a little bit and shared kind of some of the challenges that you have had in your practice. And actually, I had already reached out to you to do this episode before I had heard your previous episode. And one of the things that was telling to me was you were able to get a handle on the feeling of a challenge with your cash flow. But because you were able to go back and look at your metrics and your numbers, you were able to sort of figure out where the problem was. And I think that shows one real key element with just having a pulse on your practice metrics on a regular basis. It allows you to kind of inform yourself of where those problems are when you find a cash flow pinch, or your practice isn't doing like you expect it to do, it doesn't just resonate in your bank account. It resonates there first, maybe because you feel it, but if you're watching other things, you can detect it earlier. So what are the things that you think are in your practice from a health of your business standpoint that you really like to keep close tabs on?
Oh, Lord. Well, I have a Google spreadsheet that has 72 metrics that we track. So we look at a lot, but I've got it color coded, and so I look mostly at the colors, and I really think that when I look at the heartbeat of the practice, I go to the team first and say, hey, how do you guys think things are going? Because their emotion is going to direct me to different areas, different challenges that they think are having. And what I've learned is that their words will really direct me what's going on. When they stop telling me their successes as much and more telling me how much they're trying, it tells me there's a problem in that area. Right? So because outcomes are arguably the most important, right? If I'm trying to sell a car, it doesn't matter how many customers I see, it matters how many cars I sold. And so if I sell 5 cars in a day, I'm going to be proud that I sold 5 cars in a day. If I didn't sell any cars, I'm going to talk about how hard I tried and what the challenges were that I had. I'm not going to say I didn't sell any. I'm going to say, hey, I really tried today, or customers weren't buying. And so just the language from them helps me focus on where I need to focus. And they're, in the trenches, they're doing it every day. There's nothing worse than as a parent having somebody who's never had kids tell me how to raise a parent, or how to raise kids, right? And so I want to listen to the people who are doing the tasks. And then I want to go back and see if what the numbers tell us. And so an example in our office, I started seeing our capture rate slowly drop in the optical. And I had an indication that might happen only because for the 3 months prior, our average sale price had been increasing. Well, when price keeps going up, at some point you hit they're too expensive. And then you become too selective. And
was that increasing because you were intentionally raising your prices, or was it increasing because you were just noticing that your team might have been providing education on more premium products?
It was ultimately it was my fault, because we focused so much on the premium products, and I got so excited around the new XR lens. And I'm not saying this to market, but I've never had patients, message me back, text me saying these things are great. Nobody gets excited about a progressive lens, but patients were proactively reaching back, so we got excited about it. And you go where you look, and I was looking and directing the team to look at premium products, which meant that we stopped selling really good mid-tier products. And what I told my team is, look, we got really good at selling Ferraris. We forgot how to sell a Honda Accord and a Lexus. And not everybody's driving a Ferrari. And
sorry, so your practice, I think your practice is a little different than mine in that, I think it might be like our capture rate's a lot lower than yours. When you talk about your capture rate numbers, how do you sell how do you sell a Ferrari and a Honda at the same place?
That's the challenge that we got ourselves into. So we got
let me pause there because I want to give you kudos, because my capture rate is not nearly as good as Aaron's capture rate. That's what I meant by that. It's not that ours was better than his. Ours isn't as good, but it's because we don't sell Hondas well. We sell Ferraris really well.
Yep.
Sorry, so keep going.
No, as do we. In fact, I'll share our lens capture rate. So I look at lens pairs and frames different. I don't track complete pair. I don't care about complete pair because I care about just selling something, and they're two separate units, and so I just track it that way. So our historically our lens capture rate has been around 75, and our frame capture rate was usually always about 10 points lower, right? Because we sell higher end frames, and so we encourage patients to update those lenses and in their old frames as well, and so they always have 2 pair. And then we saw a stark drop by like 20 points in May and June. And I think part of it was because it was a perfect storm of we did really good at selling Ferraris, and the dollar doesn't go as far, whether we want to call it inflation or whatever it is, right? That people are becoming more price conscious. And so we had to go back and rework how to sell a Honda and how to sell a Lexus. And because we hadn't talked about it, I hadn't talked about, the Comfort Max or the Physio Lens, right? We just talked about the value of the Ferrari or the Save the Sale product, because somebody said I'm going to Costco, so I needed to have a Costco beater, cash pay ready to go. And so we've spent the last month really training and refining our sales pitch on a Comfort Max lens. What is it? Happens to be a fantastic lens, one of the most widely adaptable lens in the world. We just didn't look at it. And when you don't look at something, you're not comfortable with something just because you don't interact with it as much. You forget that it's there. And I changed some of the way we talk, as opposed to, how many of the premium products are we selling, to just how many products are we selling. And we went back to basics.
And that gets hard because, for an example, if you really believe that, so when you give a strong recommendation as the doctor, most doctors that do that really well are not going to say, here's a Ferrari, here's they'll listen to your complaints and they'll say, this is the best thing for you.
Yep.
And it's only at that point in time where the staff has already taken that patient out of the room and is talking about dollars, where they realize, like, oh, well, this is what I want. It's what I need. I understand that. But I can't afford or don't want to pay for the Ferrari or even the Lexus, right? So then it becomes really a focus on your team to be able to say, well, that's great. Dr. Werner did recommend the XR lens, which is the best thing for you based on his decision at this point. But this other lens is really great. Maybe it doesn't have all the bells and whistles, but it's really great. What does it sound like in your practice? How does that work?
So I needed to make sure that we were all comfortable speaking to the benefits of every product. I don't like downselling in a sense of, I don't like talking about how much less a product is, right? You don't get the iPhone 15 isn't a crappy version of the iPhone Pro. It's just different, right? So I wanted to make sure they could each speak positively, and so we went through role playing as much as it was painful, and I made them each record themselves on their phone so they could watch it. And you don't die through role playing. Like my team, we have 15 people that didn't die, and they all role played. But then I learned that I had to change my vernacular in the exam room to tee them up better for success. So my old phraseology used to be, I'm going to bring you out to Tanya, and she's going to finish your exam. Because I wanted it to be still part of the clinical process, and I put the onus on Tanya to help make those decisions. What I've since changed is in the exam room real quickly, no different than I've done with contacts or even pharmaceutical drops. Hey, based on your prescription, we've got different lenses to put in. The Comfort Max lens, I think, will do everything you need. There are better lenses. They have more technology, right? And you'll see slightly better through them. It might be overkill in your pocket, but if you like the best, you're going to appreciate the best. But this is what you need. Or on the flip side, if you've got someone with a higher prescription, a little bit crazy prescription, maybe they're super type A because they've come back for the last 20 weeks to have an RX check. Hey, I need you in the best, right? You need to pay the extra money for the best. There are less expensive products, but I don't think they're good enough for you. And just having that recommendation has made a difference for us as well, because when they talk to the opticians now, they come with a framework similar to contacts, right? Clarity is our workhorse lens, and so I'll tell patients, there's a more expensive, better lens out there as far as comfort and whatnot, but you're 22, right? You don't have dry eye issues. You're surfing, you're throwing your lenses away half the time. Just this is what you should need. Or hey, you've got really bad dry eye. You're knocking on 42, right? That aspheric design of the Mighty Energist makes a big difference for you. It's worth that extra expense.
Yeah, I'm not good at having money conversations.
I don't get to the dollars too much. I just tell them that there's a higher.
There's
or
a
lower
range.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's wrong. It's something I probably, I'll have them if a patient asks. I don't usually start or I don't usually include it unless a patient specifically asks, but I wonder if I should. I mean, I guess I do have them sometimes, but I try to avoid them just because maybe I'm not comfortable with it, or maybe I just need to get a bit more comfortable with it.
Yeah.
So some of it was your identification of having that conversation differently.
But it was the numbers that showed me that we track our numbers. I love Edge Pro GPN because it just sits on the our practice management system, and I can play with all sorts of different numbers really quickly and change it. And I realized that we were good at selling Ferraris or save the sale lenses, and tracking historically, I could see a trend. I could see the trend of our ASP going up. That's one of the metrics that we look at, both our frame and our lens ASP. And I compare those with our capture rates because I want the two in balance. I don't know what the perfect ratio is. I just know that if I start seeing one creep up too much, I'm going to see a drop.
You're going to either see a drop in gross revenue if you're selling too many of the save the sales, or you're going to see a drop over time of complete pairs or capture rate because you're too expensive. That's your take home from both of those. So then, so it's interesting. You said 72 different metrics, different KPIs, but you didn't start there for sure.
No.
So you just kind of find something new that you like to track, and then you start tracking it. How do you make the determination on this is worth tracking? And if we when you're going to sort of set goals for changing one KPI versus leaving them alone, are you all reactionary, or are you actually planning for some of that?
We try to be proactive and plan. Now, I don't share those 72 with my team. We've got probably 8 or 10 that we send out on a daily basis, just month to date type of metrics with the team, that'll change. There's core ones, but then we'll change some others depending on what our focus is and where I think we need to focus some more. And but internally now, I need to justify tracking the metric. Is it giving me useful information, or am I just tracking it because it's there to track? I tried to almost do a one-for-one swap. So if I was going to bring a new metric on, what can I get rid of, just so I didn't have more? Although our journey with COS has added on all the medical metrics that nothing else got taken off. I was just appalled at how bad we were. My emotions there didn't match up with what the data was showing me. But it's significantly improved just by measuring it and focusing on it.
CooperVision and the AOA have joined forces in a groundbreaking initiative to transform how optometrists treat children with myopia. The Myopia Collective aims to unite our profession and its allies to challenge the status quo and elevate the standard of care for children with myopia. Everyone is invited to become a member of the collective. By joining, you pledge to act in slowing childhood myopia progression. Membership includes regular updates and information about the collective's efforts, access to educational opportunities and resources, and insights from the ambassador optometrists who advocate for community policy and changes supporting the collective's mission. Click the link in the show notes to join the collective today. We've been partnering with EssilorLuxottica 360 for a while now, and it helps us in 3 areas. First, they use social media campaigns to highlight products that we believe in and prescribe to our patients, and they deliver those patients back to our practice. Second, EssilorLuxottica 360 enhances our patient experience through staff training tools that help us simplify and streamline the way we communicate about our products and services. Lastly, but for my practice most importantly, it helps us make good business decisions related to our optical offerings. We will systematically and objectively analyze what our patients are purchasing and what they like, and removing products that our patients are not really using or not really drawn to. This, along with additional rebates and immediate savings, helps us continue to deliver high-quality products and services to our patients and keeps our practice resilient. Check out EssilorLuxottica 360 for yourself by visiting EssilorLuxottica360.com.
What do you think? So, okay, I want to dig into because it's interesting to me. So you're talking about capture rate, and that's really where you saw the fall in that. That's where I'm getting the sense of your last podcast episode was, May, June was kind of this hit. I'll tell you, we had the same hit with cash flow. What it wound up being for us was two things. The first one was we were just coming off of the exchange, and I love the purchase. I love to purchase things in cash if I can. So I bought two new pieces of equipment that we paid for in cash. Also had a little bit of extra money sitting in our bank account, and I think you were on the last financial webinar that I was just on, and I had a pile of money sitting in our operating account that I hadn't moved over to our wealth building account. And so I just used that money to pay for a large piece of the dirt, like some of the down payment that we have for the new building that I was discussing. And so I was looking at all this, and I felt that my internally felt the same way. It's like, and then we saw our person that does all of our revenue cycle management, the main revenue cycle management. We have other people that do all the bits and pieces of it, but she was gone for 3 weeks in a row. So then all of a sudden you start seeing the accounts receivable balloon because, yes, we have the normal kind of stuff that gets through, but the things that are a little bit unique start to lag and pile up. So then we were kind of feeling all of that pinch at the same time. But had I not been able to know where to look for those problems, I would have been lost, right? I would have been lost in our metrics. So and then it becomes like a pull internally where you start to feel bad, and you're even looking at like, why am I doing this? Where do I go? Who do I talk to? Yeah. So, all right. Well, then, what is the way that you how do you view a metric that you're going to add into it? How do you know like this is something that you're gonna undertake and track?
I look at it the same way I look at bringing on a piece of equipment or going into adding a new management, myopia management or something to the practice, right? What's it going to add to me? How much time is it going to take for me or my team to pull this? And by the way, I have my team pull the numbers because I want them to have that sense of discovery. And so I don't pull the numbers, I just review them. They pull them and send them to me. But if I'm just pulling a metric to make me feel good, kind of like your check off to-do list, I'll write it, once I finish something, I'll write it on the list just to check it off. That's not helpful. So I want to make sure that there's a good ROI in tracking the metric. And I want to know how that metric is going to help patient care and business care. Yeah.
Is there so besides the COS KPIs, what's a new one that you've added to your tools that help inform you something that you weren't tracking before? I'll let you think about that for a second. I also like the idea, and I'll just point out, I like the idea that you and I have talked about this a number of times, even with the COS, is you have your own spreadsheet. So GPN can tell you all this information and can help you play with all the data and even help you track the data. Why do you think it's important? Well, if you don't have the answer to the other one, I want to dig into why you think it's important to have something on your own that you're actually actively doing on a regular basis. So we'll get to that if you haven't answered to my first question yet. What's the new KPI? I thought you were going to look at something. That's why
I pulled it up and was looking. One of the metrics that I like, and I don't know how we stumbled on it, but it was my business partner does a lot of dry eye. And so what I wanted to see is, as an office, what percentage of our comprehensive exams, our VSP, IMED, whatever exams, right? What percentage of those are being referred for a dry eye workup? And because she spends so much of her time focusing on dry eye, I need to make sure that percentage of referrals over to dry eye clinic is high enough. Otherwise, I'm going to see a dip about 3 months later.
In the dry eye clinic.
In the dry eye clinic. And so, and we've got time booked just for dry eye slots that we hold for those. So if we start seeing a drop, I'm going to have open space on the schedule that might be tough to fill last minute. And so I want to just make sure that the way we work is, she's the dry eye expert in the office, and so the rest of the doctors will just refer into her. We tend not to manage dry eye as much. She's the expert. We refer into her. We each have, I've got one doc that likes pediatrics, so all the pediatric myopia management gets referred into him. But I want to make sure that those percentages of are staying pretty stable.
Yeah. Yeah, and then so I think that's good. And then the other thing that that I wanted to ask about was, why do you think it's important to put it on a separate spreadsheet? Why don't I just go into my GPN and mine the data?
Putting it on my spreadsheet makes it mine. If I'm looking at GPN's data, it's theirs, and there's power in entering the numbers. There's self-discovery as I enter through the numbers. I think that there's just that step makes me focus on what I'm looking at. It's really easy to look at a GPN report and maybe have music playing in the background or be on a call and kind of just half-ass what I'm doing. But that the translation of data from their reports to mine, there's a lot of discovery in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing that you're really adamant about. I think from an iCode standpoint, I'm looking at, and you and I have discussed this, is like, what tools can we build to help somebody automate the data acquisition to make it simpler. And while people will pay for those tools on a regular basis, I'm mostly concerned and interested in, again, you and I have had these conversations at length, is really creating action. So we want to work with people, obviously, that want to change behaviors. Obviously we have to run a business, but what I'm really looking for is having people walk away and being like, my practice is different. I'm able to care for patients more effectively, and it's translating into a more successful business. Whereas, so there's this kind of balance between, and I think you're right. I think when you actually have to run the numbers and own the numbers and be responsible for the maintenance of that, it does sort of change behavior, as opposed to, I can get you data, we can mine that data like a GPN, right? We can mine that data on the back end and aggregate it, give it to you, but you still have to take the action. I can't do it for you. So I wish there was a simpler way, but yeah.
I think though simple sometimes comes with its downsides too. I remember when I was racing Ironmans and I first started, I just took my bike to the shop where I got it to have them tune it up and fix it. And I had a problem during a race and I couldn't fix it. And I don't like feeling not in control. And I was in the middle of, a stretch where there was probably 10 miles either way in front and behind me where there wasn't a set stop. So I just had to wait for the little motorcycle guy to come by. From then on, I started taking care of my bike. It took some extra work, but I learned the nuances of it. I learned how to problem solve. And so the next time during a race there was a malfunction, I could fix it and get through and make it work. So I think, if we're taking care of these babies and these babies are taking care of us being our practices, we got to know how they work. We got to know the ins and the outs. And I don't think I have to be the one to go and pull the individual reports, but I like my team to do it, so they have that self-discovery too, which, by the way, it's really funny when they come back to me and say, telling me something that I've been telling them for 2 months, but they finally pulled the numbers and they realize it. But getting your hands dirty is critically important in making sure that all the different, how one lever affects another lever, right? How all the different integrations.
Yeah. Yeah, so if somebody hasn't been pulling numbers in anything, in any realm, if you think about the average independent practice, maybe even the average independent vision source practice that you've worked with, what are the numbers that you would say, okay, these are the ones you should start right away with, maybe 3 to 5 that you say, and listen, you got to start tracking these now.
Yep. I think revenue per exam and revenue per doctor hour, I think, are key, because it'll tell you just what you're bringing in. And keep in mind that's revenue, not profit, right? So there's 2 different discussions, but I think revenue coming in for those 2 is critically important. I like tracking revenue per staff hour because it tells me how well staffed I am. Do I need to have more staff? Am I overstaffed? And then I like tracking revenue per payroll dollar. Am I spending enough on payroll? Am I spending too much? Am I not spending enough? Those are internal. As far as the team goes, I think capture rates are important, and I've already talked about why I like to separate lens and frame. I think that penetration of contact lens exams to comprehensive exams is really important. Most everybody
and it's way less. Your observation is that it's way less than you think it is.
Way less. I've only found a handful of offices that have been at that 30% that everybody quotes. And you want to move that wherever you're at up by 5 points. the numbers show that's basically a 5% year-over-year growth just by focusing on that. I also like to look at my material revenue sales per contact lens. So as opposed to tracking annual supplies or tracking boxes, it's just easier for me to say, hey, how much are people buying in contacts? We do a lot of dailies, so it's hard to sell an annual supply of dailies, but I don't care as long as they come back and buy more, right? Yep. And that number can fluctuate by lots of different things, but at the end of the day, it's still revenue back to the practice. And so I can tell you what our contact lens patients are worth annually, both from their exam fee and what the average revenue spend is that they have. And then I think that you focus on what something you're trying to bring in. If you're looking to bring in an Optos or utilize your Optos more, focus on that. For us, our Optos capture rate was high, so it's not become a focus anymore. If you're trying to build your, CR39 to polycarbonate, track that, or your anti-glare, track that. And you track it until it's consistent, and then you kind of move it to the background. So lately, our biggest focus has been the medical KPIs.
Yeah, obviously, I think that's low-hanging fruit for a lot of practices, and it's such a dramatic departure from what they're used to tracking that they take something that was an afterthought and kind of put it at the forefront of their mind, and they just start realizing the same way you did is like, holy cow, like, wow, this is a whole part of my business that I've done, but I've never really known about it in terms of feeling like this is what it does for our practice growth and you know about it from a patient care standpoint, but you don't really have a handle on how it impacts your whole practice. So that's what we've seen a lot of, and obviously that's what I think is a ton of fun. So I think that's where we should stop the conversation, Aaron. Thanks for jumping on today.
Absolutely.
I'll encourage any of the listeners today, make sure that if you're listening to the RSS feed, jump on Apple, give us a review. Both Aaron and I shows are on the same feed. Give us a review. It really helps us reach a larger audience. If you're on YouTube, we're going to be doing more of these live shows on YouTube. We've really neglected YouTube. It's sort of been an afterthought, but we're going to be investing in that platform as well to try to grow. So if you like watching stuff on YouTube, smash the like button, the subscribe button, the notify button, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Appreciate it, Aaron. Have a great day.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, buddy. All right.